Oh, okay, okay. It should work.
Wait, so overflow parking is here? So this is the final. This is the final one.
You can also make it for as this mic.
Find where you want to see, maybe near the TVs or the speakers.
Yeah.
She's my neighbor.
Haribo.
We'll start.
Yeah, this. I think this mic could be better. Haribo. Haribo. Haribo.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare
Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Maharaj, thank you for visiting from Radha Golokananda, which is 1.5 hours from here. And Maharaj just mentioned that for Janmashtami, there are 15,000 people. So all please come forward. Please come forward so that people who join. And Maharaj, they have been serving in Radha Golokananda for last 40 years. This is the 40th anniversary, right Maharaj?
40th anniversary.
Yes.
The deed installation.
Deed installation.
Temple's been there since 1982, so
1982.
43 years.
So, and we trekked the land and came. Maharaj was walking much faster than us. With that brief introduction, I'll give the mic to Maharaj.
Okay. Is your cartels? We can chant them.
Here.
What's that? No, these are mine. It's good to be here. I was expecting a bigger crowd, but this is good. Jaya Radha Madhura Kunya Vihati. I can do marigolds. Marigolds, I'm allergic to marigolds. Jaya Radha Madhura Kunya Vihati. Jalabalaba, Giridharadauti. Gopi, Jalabalaba, Giridharadauti. Yatsuranandana, Rajajana Ranjana, Rajajana Ranjana, Yasuranandana, Rajajana Ranjana, Yamno Jeva Manachari. Namona Tera Banachale. Jaya Madhura Kunyari Hare. Jaya Madhura Kunyari Hare. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravatikacharya, also Chara Satashi Shimad, His Divine Grace Savaya Charana Bhaktivedanta Goswami Marshila Prabhupada Ki Jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananda Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Shilapila Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shilveda Gadadha Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radhakrishna Gopi Gopinath Shyamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavanam Ki Jai, Machuranam Ki Jai, Jagadaswami Ki Jai, Yamunamai Ki Jai, Shrimati Lasi Devi Ki Jai, Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Gaur Premananda Hari. All glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious the assembled devotees. All glorious to Shri Guru and Gauranga, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya, Buddhale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Jinamani Namaste, Saraswati Deve, Gauravani Pacharani, Nipashesha Shunyavali, Paschacha Deja Tarni. So we get out to Miranda Shagananjana Shlakaya Chakshuru Miritam Yena Sasmai Shigurveda Maha. So I was planning to speak about something that's really interesting. It's called atonement, or how to deal with past sinful activities, and what the Bhagavatam says about that, what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says about that, and what we do about that. Or I can talk about that, or how to build a temple, or how we built Mugalok. It's up to you. What would you like me to talk about? One to go. What?
First one.
The first one. Okay. Okay. Start with that. Which is a very interesting thing, because we understand about the law of karma. And the law of karma, of course, means action and reaction. And in this one book called the Mano Samhita, you have all these different rules and regulations for human beings, and if human beings violate these rules and regulations, there's trouble. You get a karmic reaction. And some of them are so heavy, unbelievably heavy, the reactions. And even the injunctions are so heavy too. Like, for example, one reaction, if you have a guest come to your house, and you're not happy that they've come, and you look at them with staring eyes, then next life you gotta have a vulture pluck your eyeballs out. Heavy stuff. Some of you may have read the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And in the 5th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's all sorts of punishments for sinful activities. And so it's quite frightening. Very, very frightening. So anyway, so let's go to the Bhagavatam. So you have Shukadeva Goswami explaining all these different punishments. For example, one punishment is if someone offends a devotee, then they're put through a sugarcane press. It's back and forth, and they're pressed up again and again, and never die, of course. And if one is very stingy, then they're stitched with different threads in their body in the next life, or in the Yamaraja's place. So, I'm not going to go through all the different punishments in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. However, after hearing about all those punishments, Parikshit Maharaj, who was listening to Shukadeva Goswami, has a different response than most of us would have. Most of us, we like to see some bad person punished, isn't it? Just like recently, we were watching this one movie, Maha Avatar, Nrsingadev, you seen the movie? You've seen the movie. Very nice movie. And so as soon as Hiranyakashipu had his intestines thrown around, you saw that? He took out the intestines and threw them in the air. And then he also took the heart out. That was really interesting. And threw it away. And so everybody was going, Haribol! During that. So, of course, we'd like to see Prahlad Maharaj saved. We'd like to see Lord Nrsingadev come out. But in one sense, unfortunately, we like to see people suffer, too. It's a bad part of our psychology. That if someone has done something wrong, we think, I want to see them suffer. You know, if someone has offended you, we get happy to see them suffer, which is not. The Brahmana is always what? Forgiving. One of the qualities of a Brahmana is he forgives. Like you see, Prahlad Maharaj, after Lord Nrsingadev killed his father, he didn't say, thank you, you got him. That was great. I'm glad you smashed the guy. Let him go to hell. Prahlad Maharaj never said that. One of the first things he said to Lord Nrsingadev was that, actually, save my father. Lord Nrsingadev came to him, he came to Lord Nrsingadev, sat on Lord Nrsingadev's lap, and he was licked by Lord Nrsingadev. And Lord Nrsingadev said, what do you want? He says, I'm not a baniya, I'm not a merchant. But at the same time, I am actually feeling great compassion for everybody, especially my father. And Lord Nrsingadev said, your father is forgiven, and not only is forgiven, but so many generations forward and backward in your family are liberated by your mercy. So that's a Vaishnava. We all also say, Kripa Sindhu Yevacha. Kripa Sindhu means an ocean of mercy. So forgiveness is a very important quality. So Parikshit Maharaj is listening to this whole description, and he's not thinking, good, those rascals got it. Actually, another thing is in America, they have this thing called capital punishment. Some of you may have heard this before. That means when a criminal is killed by the government. And so when they have this criminal being killed, sometimes people camp outside of the prison house and they have a party as soon as they see that the criminal is killed. But that's not a Vaishnava's attitude. Of course, we do believe that a murderer should be killed for compassionate purposes, because when a murderer is killed, then he's alleviated from his karma, and also people don't have to deal with him anymore. That's another issue. But a Vaishnava is never happy to see people suffer. Never, never happy. He's para dukkha dukhi, which means he's not concerned with his own happiness, but he's concerned with others. That's the quality. You see with Srila Prabhupada, he was like that. So Parikshit Maharaj has that attitude too. And he is basically a little upset hearing the description of Shukadeva Goswami's hell, the hells that Shukadeva Goswami is describing. And he says to Shukadeva Goswami, how can people be relieved from these punishments? And Shukadeva Goswami, first of all, says something that's not true. Because sometimes the spiritual master will test the disciple in different ways, just to see the disciple's understanding or determination. And this is actually a funny story I can tell in this regard. One time, a disciple of Prabhupada came to Prabhupada and asked Prabhupada for permission to take sannyas. And Prabhupada said, no, you should get married. So about 4 or 5 days later, this devotee brings his fiancée to meet Prabhupada. So obviously, it was a test. Prabhupada was testing. So Shukadeva Goswami was also testing his disciple. So Parikshit Maharaj, he says, I don't accept your explanation of prayaschitta, but this is what Shukadeva Goswami says. Prayaschitta means you perform some big austerity. Like you see, actually in the Christian church, they have this idea of torturing yourself. One time I was in New York, and I was visiting this one museum called Ripley's Believe It or Not. They also have that in London too. So, and in the basement they had all these different ways that Christians would torture themselves in different ways. And even there was one film, I don't know if any of you have seen that film years ago, it was called Da Vinci Code, in which you saw that film, one of the Christians was beating himself. I'm sinful, I'm sinful, I'm sinful. And that's not the way to purify yourself. It's useless. The reason it's useless, according to Parikshit Maharaj and according to our philosophy, is that even if you torture yourself, even if you stop for some time the sinful activity, you're not going to be able to stop permanently, because what's called the Papa Bija, the seed of desire, remains in the heart. So that seed will fructify when it is watered in the right way. In other words, when the time comes, the seed of sinful desire. Because when we're talking about karma, there's a whole cycle. There's kuta, there's bija, and there's the activity itself, the karma. Then there's the aparabdha karma, the parabdha karma. I'll explain what those mean. That's a cycle of karma. Kuta means the inclination to do things that are not pleasing to the Supreme Personality of God. And then you develop a bija, the seed of a particular desire. And then after the seed of the particular desire, then you actually perform the activity. Because as Krishna says in the Gita, what is it? Jayato vishal pulsam sangos tesha bhajayate sangat sanjayate kama kama krodha bhajayate. When you contemplate things, you have the seed, you contemplate things, then you become attached, then lust develops, and then eventually you do the activity, and that's the karma. Karma means the work or the activity. So then after the karma, then you get the aparabdha, the karmic reaction that's not yet there. You know, we all have it. You can look at your horoscope to see it. If you really want to look at the horoscope, you know, horoscope, horror, it's a horrible. Then you'll see so many things, inauspicious things. I mean, like for example, in my horoscope, I was told I was supposed to die when I was 55 years old. I was waiting, counting down the days, thinking, oh, get to go back to Godhead sooner. Didn't. I'm still here. So anyway, so the horoscope shows your aparabdha karma. And then the parabdha karma is what you have now. That means either you're good looking, or you're ugly, or you're rich, or you're poor, or you have some legal problems, or some enemies. I mean, all these things are your parabdha karma. So it all starts from the kuta and the bija. And then you also have the three modes of nature, which Krishna says in the Gita, Hika Sitchanam Pichata Tisati Karma Krit, Karyate Yavasa Karma Sarva Prakriti Jargana, that everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the impulses born in the modes of nature. So in other words, prayaschitta, in terms of atonement, or torturing your body, or fasting. You know, I see sometimes devotees, they do something wrong, you know, and then they fast for 3 days to atone. Or they give up their favorite food, idlis or something. That's my atonement. You're not going to get purified by giving up idlis. You'll just get frustrated. So anyway, so the point is that it doesn't really free you of the sinful activity or the sinful reaction. And at the same time, it doesn't free you from the desire to do it again. You know, devotees often say, Maya made me do it. Well, that's nonsense too. Anyway, we always want to blame something else or someone else. I'm angry because you made me angry. But in any case, there's this desire, the intention, the modes of nature. And so this prayaschita in terms of, atonement, like that doesn't work. And Parikshit Maharaj compared it to Kunjara Sochara, the bathing of an elephant. If you've ever seen an elephant bathe itself, it goes in the water, and then it comes out of the water after it's taken a nice bath, and it rubs some dirt over itself. Now, actually, that is productive because it helps it keeps clean. But in any case, when you take a bath, you don't want to be dirty right afterwards. So that's the idea of this atonement. You remain dirty, and you're not free of the desire to perform that particular activity. So Parikshit Maharaj objects to Shukadeva Goswami's explanation there. And finally, Shukadeva Goswami comes to the point. There's a beautiful verse in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is all from the 6th canto of Bhagavatam. Tasmat sankirtanam Vishnu Jagan Mangalam Angasam Mahatam Api Kauravya Vijayantika Nishkratam. That the best method of dealing with anything that we've done wrong in the past is what? Sankirtan. Everyone's heard of Sankirtan? That means the congregational chanting of the Lord's holy names, or the complete absorbed chanting of Krishna's names. And by doing that, then one becomes free. And it doesn't matter what the past is. Like Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's process, Dina Hina Yata Chilo Harinam Udarilo, whether one is fallen, whether one is elevated. If one chants Harinam, then one can come to the spiritual platform. And even we have statements, the Bhagavatam statement, Aho Bhatta Swapa Chato Garyanya Jiva Grave Artate Nama Tubhyam Tipus Jehovah Shashna Aryad Brahmanucha Nama Krinanti Yete. That if one is chanting the Lord's holy names, then it's understood that he's completely purified himself, come to the platform being a Brahmin, and he's performed all the austerities that were required in the past. He doesn't have to undergo so much prayaschita or wait for many births to become a Brahmin or to become a devotee. There's an interesting story in the Mahabharata that shows the normal process for becoming a Brahmin. It's an interesting story. Once upon a time, there was a worm. It's a story of a worm. And the worm was crossing the road. Worm not running, squirming across the road. And as the worm was crossing the road, the worm tried to go faster. Srila Vyasadeva came along. Anyone heard this story before? No, interesting story in the Mahabharata. Srila Vyasadeva came along and said to the worm, my dear worm, I guess worms talked in those days, my dear worm, why are you squirming and going across the road like that? And the worm said, I can feel that there is a cart coming that's going to squish me. So Srila Vyasadeva says to the worm, well, do you know that if you get squished by this cart, then in the next life, you're going to take birth as a better worm. You're going to go up the evolutionary cycle. I don't remember exactly what the next birth was. I guess a butterfly or something like that. And then gradually, life after life, like we hear about Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam Bhajananamante, Yanamam Prapachante. Anyway, so gradually you're going to become a Shudra. And then in the next life after Shudra, you're going to become a Vaishya. Next life after that, you become a Kshatriya. Next life after that, you become a Brahmin. And then you get a chance to do some service for me. And then The next life after that, you become a Vaishnava. Oh my God. So you can imagine going up, what is that, 8,400,000 species of life. I don't know how many between worm and human being, but it's quite a bit. And so therefore you should stay in the road and get squished. So I guess the worm said, Haribol. No, if he said Haribol, then you become a human being. But anyway, so then the worm stayed in the road, he got squished. And then basically, eventually he became a devotee after many, many lifetimes. It's a long process. So that's the normal process. But when one is exposed to the holy name, that's a different scenario. And of course, in the 6th canto of Bhagavatam, the story that Srila Vyasadeva, that Shukadeva Goswami says, to illustrate the point, is the story of a Jamil. And there's other stories I'm going to tell in a second. A Jamil, as we know, had a lot of bad karma. I think most of you know the story of the Jamil. I mean, he was a nice Brahmin when he was young, became attracted to basically a prostitute, low-class lady. He gave up his lawfully wedded wife, mistreated her, mistreated his parents. I guess they died prematurely. Squandered all the money on the prostitute, had children by the prostitute, just because he became attracted, to sinful activity. That means he really wasn't a devotee in the beginning. His heart wasn't pure. That's the danger in this world. Again, that verse in Bhagavad Gita, Jayato Vishapum Sangho Steshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Krota Vijayate Krota Bhavati Samoha Sama Smriti Vibrahma Smriti Brahmashad Nashtabudi Vanashyati. A very important verse in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Contemplating sense objects, one gets attached, one gets lusty, one gets angry, one loses intelligence, falls down into the material whirlpool. And that's what happened to a Jamil, because he wasn't chanting Hare Krishna or Narayan or some names of God. So anyway, he falls down and does all these horrible things, and as a result, he has all this bad karma. And because of all this bad karma, he gets ready to die. He's like 86 years old. And he's very fortunate. He's named one of his sons, his youngest son, Narayan. And so at the time of death, he's chanting Narayan, Narayan, Narayan. And so what happens is that basically Yamadutas come, Vishnudutas come, and they save him from the Yamadutas. And he's given a longer life, because he's only chanting Namabhash. But the interesting thing about Namabhash chanting is that it frees one from all bad karma. From Aparabdha, Parabdha, Kuta, Bija. But it doesn't get one back to Godhead. It's not that the Jamil went back to Godhead at that point. He still had to become a devotee. He went to Haridwar, performed austerities, and then later he was able to go back to Godhead. But the point is, he got the adhikar, the right to perform devotional service, because he chanted the Lord's holy names. Similarly, because we go out and we chant Krishna's name publicly, we have the Harinam, internet chanting and everything like that, then people are getting liberated, getting the chance to become devotees. It's a liberation, but it's not going back to Godhead. They get a chance. When they go see Lord Jagannath, they get a chance. So we should strive to expose as many people as possible to the holy names. The real holy names have to be chanted by devotees. Someone in disciplic succession. Someone connected to Srila Prabhupada, hopefully. Just like my experience is that before I came to Krishna consciousness, I just happened to be listening to the radio one day. In those days we had radios. I don't know if you still have radios. Do you still have radios? Really? In the car. They still have radios. I never even knew that. I don't have a radio in my car. So, nowadays it's just internet, everything. So anyway, so the point is, I was listening to the radio, and all of a sudden I heard Prabhupada chanting. Never had any exposure to Krishna consciousness before. Nothing. And all of a sudden Prabhupada chanting, and my life changed. I listened to it once, I recorded it. We had these tape recorders, the reel-to-reel tape recorders in those days, big things. I recorded it, played it over and over and over again, and here I am today. Just because I heard the pure devotee chanting. And the interesting thing is, previously to that, I had read Bhagavad Gita, but not Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, but because there was no potency, that may be a shock to you, but because there was no potency, because it wasn't coming in disciplic succession, then it didn't make any difference to me. First of all, didn't understand it either. I know many of you from India have read the Bhagavad Gita and you didn't really understand it either. Where you came to ISKCON and read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. And another thing that happened to me before I joined the Krishna conscious movement, I got a Krishna book, and I read it, and I didn't understand so much what was going on in it, but I couldn't keep the image of Krishna feeding butter to the monkeys out of my mind. So, Bhavanti Ritkarna Rasayana Kata, Jajoshana Dasyo Pavarga Vartmani Shraddha Ratiya Bhakti Anukramishi. This is a verse by Lord Kapiladev. He says, when one associates with a pure devotee, Satam Prasangan, Mama Virya Samvida, that talks about Krishna's activities. Bhavanti Ritkarna Rasayana Kata. Then from the ear to the rit, the heart, then you get this Rasayana, like tasty medicine, like Brahmi Rasayana or Jeev Rasayana or any of these other types of Rasayanas. Rasayana Kata, Jajoshana Dasyo Pavarga Vartmani Shraddha Ratiya Bhakti Anukramishati. Then you progress on the path of devotional service. So that's the amazing thing, that holy name is the best form of atonement. And actually I'm going to tell some more stories about that, just to illustrate the point, to show you that the holy name is really all you need. Chanting purely, coming from disciplic succession, not just the vibration in the mouth, but you have to hear, like Prabhupada said, must be hear from the lips of a pure devotee. So those of us who are representing Prabhupada, even though we may not be pure, it's not that everybody is pure, but if you're representing Prabhupada, empowered by Prabhupada, then it's the same as hearing from Prabhupada. And then it affects a dramatic change in people's lives. I mean, I was just looking at one famous kirtan chanter, and he's actually a devotee of Krishna. He's an initiated devotee. And his name is Radhika Das. You ever heard of him before? Yeah. And he was doing a Hare Krishna kirtan in I think it was Mumbai, in a stadium, and he had like 20,000 people chanting and dancing and crying. Some of them were actually crying. So that's the potency of the holy name, if it's done by someone who is actually connected and empowered. So anyway, I'll give you some Shastric stories. One Shastric story, this is also about a prize chitta and everything like that. And one Shastric story is famous story of Valmiki, that I think most of you are familiar. Valmiki, before he was Valmiki, was Ratnagara. He was a dacoit, and he was really bad. It's actually one of my favorite stories because in the Valmiki Ramayana, and that's the Ramayana that I have read, not the Tulsidas or any other Ramayana. The Valmiki Ramayana described that he was a dacoit, and he was killing people, robbing people, everything like that. And one day, he happened to stop the Sapta Rishis. That's the Valmiki Ramayana story, and In other stories, it's different. Anyway, so the Saptarishis, he says to the Saptarishis, give me your money. And of course, the Saptarishis don't have too much money, and I don't think they have credit cards either. You know, they're renowned sages. And so they say to him, they preach to him, they said, you have bad karma doing this to people. And he says, what can I do? You know, my wife needs her saris. My children need their iPhones. I'm making that up. You know, like the story, you know, you go to a family, and say to the son, what do you have? He said, I have an iPhone. And you go to the daughter, I have an iPad. And the wife has iMac. And you go to the father, and what do you have? I paid. So anyway, let's get back to the story. So in the Valmiki Ramayana, anyway, they say that you know you really have bad karma, and he says, my wife needs this, etc. So he goes back to his family and sees if they could share some of his karma, and they say, no way, my dear husband, my dear Putty Dave, no way. And the children say exactly the same thing. He goes back to the Sapti Rishis, what should I do? And they say, you should chant Ram's name. And of course, we know he couldn't chant Ram's name, so he chants Mara, Mara, Mara. And by chanting Mara, 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 he goes from the position of being the lowest person imaginable to the highest position of being able to write the Valmiki Ramayana. And not only that, he was able to host Sita Devi and Laban Kush in his ashram. I mean, there's a perfect example of that, of how the holy names can purify anyone. And there's another example. I give examples to illustrate this. There's another example of a devotee in Lord Chaitanya's pastimes named Subhuti Roy. Subhuti Roy, okay, when he was young, he had a servant who was a Muslim, and he hit his servant one time. Gave the servant a hit, caused a mark on the servant's back. So the servant grows up and later on becomes in charge. He becomes the Nawab. Nawab means the person in charge of that particular area. He's mogul. And so, but he still likes this devotee, Subhuti Roy. And so he doesn't do anything bad to him. But this Nawab has a wife. And the wife sees the mark on his back from when he was young. And the wife asks, well, how did you get that mark on your back? And he says, well, Subhuti Roy hit me when I was a servant. And his wife says, you got to kill Subhuti Roy. And he says, no, I like him too much. Other than that, he was pretty nice to me. And so the wife says, you got to do something. So he thinks, well, let me convert him into what? A Muslim. So in those days, it was really easy to convert people. You just throw some water. I wish we could do that too. You become a Hare Krishna, you take some of the water from the deities. You're Hare Krishna. Oh no! I'm a Hare Krishna. I didn't want to become a Hare Krishna. Anyway, so Subhuti Roy throws some water on him from his water pot. And people are so ritualistic. You think you become a Muslim just by getting some water? Oh my God. If that was the case, that you would actually lose your caste, then every time, I go in an airplane and I drink some water they offer me some water, I become a Christian or something. It doesn't work like that. That's just a superstition. So anyway, but he took it seriously. And he thought, now I'm sinful. What should I do? So he went, basically after some time, he went to Varanasi and went to people, and they told him, your only method of atonement is you take a molten metal and drink it. Well, that's not exactly going to enable you to survive, isn't it? You know, you drink some molten metal, you're dead immediately. And he doesn't like that idea. He goes around. Finally, he meets Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, just chant Hare Krishna. So he chants Hare Krishna and he goes to Vrindavan. And he begins to serve Rupa and Sanatan and the other Goswamis in Vrindavan and becomes a great devotee and famous devotee and goes back to home, back to God, one of the eternal associates of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So another story of the chanting of the holy names. So many nice stories. And then there's the famous story from the Puranas about Magrari the hunter. I think some of you have heard that story. Magrari was a hunter. He was half killing animals. And he enjoyed half killing animals because he liked to see them suffer. And so what happened is that Narada Muni comes along, and Narada Muni says, first of all, Narada Muni frees the animals, and then he gets angry at Narada Muni, and he says, why'd you free them? And Narada Muni says, why, if you're going to kill them, why don't you kill them completely? And he says, this is my tradition. People have so many crazy traditions. People don't think about traditions. Like in Nepal, they have this tradition where they slaughter cows. Thousands of them. You heard about this before? Some of you may have heard that before. It's a crazy tradition. So anyway, so he said, this is my family tradition. My father taught me to do this. This is how I make a living, whatever. And Narada Muni says, well, you're going to have to, reality, where he actually saw the same animals coming after him to kill him. The same animals who he had killed. And so he thought, what am I going to do? Narada Muni says, stop killing. And he says, what am I going to do for making a living? And Narada Muni says, I'll take care. You just chant Hare Krishna. So he chanted Hare Krishna, and he became a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just chanting. He and his wife, they chant on the bank of the Ganges, or the sacred river, and they worship Tulsi Devi. So there's Prayaschitta again, you know. It's very, very, very important understanding. And there's also in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes the story of Haridas Thakur and the prostitute. This prostitute was sent to defame Haridas Thakur to lure him into illicit life. And it was sent by someone named Ramchandra Khan, who was an envious landholder. And so Haridas Thakur just remained, I'm not going to tell the whole story because you're all familiar with it. He remained for 3 days chanting his rounds, giving the prostitute an excuse that, I have to finish my rounds. And eventually, she became addicted to hearing the holy names, began to chant because she was hearing from the lips of a pure devotee. And then she became a devotee, apologized, and basically went back to home, back to Godhead eventually. You see, from the lowest to the highest, Dinahina Yatu Chilo, Harinam Utarilo. How powerful is Krishna's name? And then one final story from Chaitanya Leela, and then we'll have time for questions, is the story of there was a person named Amoga, who was the son-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he used to take prasadam at Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's house, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would eat sometimes a lot because his hosts would force him to eat more and more. And that's the culture. I remember, first time I went to India, people would just force you to eat more and more and more, and finally you had to just, stop it. Stop it. And then they would work a way around your hands to put more food on the table. Anyway, so that's why many devotees got sick the first time they went to, because they would just keep eating. They thought they had gone back to Godhead. So much food. So anyway, Lord Chaitanya would eat more than normal because Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya would cook for him. And Amoga, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya's son-in-law, would stand outside and criticize Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then what happened is that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya ran to beat him. And then finally, he couldn't catch him because he was quite old. he said, we'll reject him. He maybe or may have been my daughter's husband, but now my daughter has no husband. You know, that's how strict he was, because he has offended Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so Amoga then started to get cholera, and he was dying from cholera. And then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this, and he was so merciful that he went to Amoga, put his hand on Amoga's chest, and he said, this sort of impurity should not reside in that heart of a Brahmin. Get up and chant Hare Krishna. So Amoga immediately got up, was chanting Hare Krishna, was cured, and he actually hit himself on his cheeks because he felt so remorseful for what he had done. So anyway, so these are different stories. Again, that verse, Tasmat Sankirtanam Vishnor Jaganmangalang Angnasam. It's a very important verse in the 6th canto of Bhagavatam. Mahatama Akoravya Vijakantika Niskritam. That the topmost method of reformation of atonement is the chanting of Krishna's names, and Mahatam Apikoravya can have several meanings. The great souls also do it, or the great souls recommend it. And so this is our motto in the Krishna consciousness movement, that we don't consider the past of someone who has come to Krishna consciousness. In fact, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, one way that we offend Vaishnavas is by talking about their past. Oh, I knew you when you were eating fish. What do they call it? Gangapal. Gangafal. That's what they call in Bengal. You know, the fruit of the Ganges. Gangafal, right? Isn't it the fruit Gangafal? So anyway, so I knew you when you were doing this. I knew you when you were doing that. No. We don't look at a Vaishnava's past. This is a great offense. We see what a Vaishnava is at present. Anyone who's chanting the Lord's holy names. In fact, it's described, even if someone is not a regular, Hare Krishna card-carrying ISKCON member, if one chants Hare Krishna once, we offer respect, according to Rupa Goswami. We offer respect in our minds. You don't have to offer dandavats. But if someone chants Hare Krishna once, then in our minds, oh, we respect such a person. That's how powerful Krishna's names are. And by Prabhupada's mercy, we've been given the holy names, and we've been given the ability to give other people the holy names. And that's how fortunate we are. We should count our good fortune every day. So, anyway, any questions or comments? Anyone wanted to ask some questions about developing temples,
5 minutes we can talk about
a temple? Well, let me mention how we built the temple in Hillsborough, so you get an idea how if you're determined, it'll happen. When I came to Hillsborough, North Carolina, I wanted to build a temple. So I picked a good location right in between the major cities of that part of North Carolina. Far away from Charlotte, don't worry. We're not competing with you. So, this is not an advertisement for Radha Gokananda. We already had 15,000 people. We can't deal with more people. It's a problem, a big problem. The biggest problem we have is too many people. We have no financial problems, no nothing. It's too many people. The police were upset. We don't know how the county's going to react. You got to be careful in the future about that. So, anyway, I came to North Carolina and bought property that was right in between all the major population areas with the idea. Camped out on the property for the first 2 years, designed the temple, built a scale model, went around to my friends in the community, collected the money, and built the temple. With my own hands, actually. So it takes determination. That's the point I'm making. And then in the beginning, I was one of the main people, one of the pujaris, worshiping the deities, addressing the deities, and taking care of you. We had to do so many artis and offerings every day. Deity worship is a very serious thing. So in the future, when we have the temple, we're going to need the commitment here from everybody, because you're not going to have any, as far as I know, you're not going to have any brahmacharis living in the temple. You know, it doesn't work to import people from India or import people from anywhere else. So even in Nugaloka right now, we have 100% commitment from the community. You know, we have 1 or 2 people in the temple, but 90% of the worship is being done by people coming every day, every morning, to wake the deities up. Even at 3:30 in the morning, people are coming. You know, I'm out there chanting japa early in the morning, and people are coming, and they're waking the deities up and doing the puja and serving the deities. And because of that, we've attracted so many people, keeping the deities in the center. You know, and even recently we've attracted, I know you probably know Amarendra Prabhu. He's come. So the whole idea is you keep Krishna at the center, no politics. I don't know if you have any politics here, probably not. But if Prabhupada's pleasure is there and the deity's pleasure is there, then the politics will be minimal or non-existent. So you have to have this mission statement to give pleasure to Prabhupada. What is in Nugaloka, our mission statement is more devotees, happier devotees. It doesn't matter who they take initiation from. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what country they come from, but more devotees, happier devotees, good sadhana. And that's been our success. And if you concentrate on that, you remain unified. Actually, if the devotees remain unified, then there'll be no problems with money. You'll have too much. It's like Prabhupada said, that when you have a husband and a wife, if they never argue, is that possible?
Yes.
It is possible?
Yeah.
Well, we can talk about that later. This will be the first time I've met someone who didn't argue with his wife. Anyway, so if the husband and wife, they get along with each other, the goddess of fortune is automatic. Lakshmi is there. You know, everybody's worried about Lakshmi. You know, you do Lakshmi Puja, isn't it? You worship Lakshmi, you know, please make me rich. But actually, the miracle or the recipe for becoming rich is just like you cooperate with each other. And then you have all sorts of opulence, not just money. Money is not that important. But all sorts of opulence will be there if the devotees have loving relationships, like Rupa Goswami talks about in his Upadeshamrita, Dadati Pratikarati, Guyamakyati Prichati Bhunkte Bhojate Chaiva. Isn't it? Like giving prasadam, accepting prasadam, giving gifts, accepting, revealing the mind in confidence and trusting each other, working together. And, you know, if everyone in the community cooperate in a loving spirit, the temple will get built really quickly. There'll be many more people coming, and you'll never have any problems with finances or any other issue. It's all a question of Vaishnava relationships. Like we know Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came to teach 3 things: Vaishnava Seva, Nama Ruchi, and Jivadoya. So we have this concept of, you can't have Krishna consciousness without all 3 of these. And if we have this consciousness here, then there'll be all success. You know, even now, I'm thinking in where we are in North Carolina, I want to open up another temple. You know, I think I'm opening another temple in Greensboro, Holly Hills area right now. Because we have too many people. It's too much for us. So this will be the first, if you do that, this will be the first temple amongst many in Charlotte. You know, why not? Prabhupada always thought big. I mean, in the Atlanta area, which is part of my GBC zone too, we have several temples. There's this Lakshmi Nrsimha temple, which I was just at, about the beautiful temple actually in North Atlanta. And this other city, Almaretta, something, that they're opening up another temple right now. So we have 3 or 4 temples in Atlanta. It's amazing. In Fiji, which is part of my GBC zone, which has a population, the whole country has a population 900,000, we have 5 Radha Krishna temples. Wow. So, it's just a question of working together and cooperation, and all success will be there. So any questions or comments? Anybody have any questions?
Maharaj, thank you very much for your class. So regarding the chanting of the holy name, offensive status, we are chanting the 10 offenses, we are trying to remind ourselves, and it looks like, we are in the offensive stage forever and ever. So, what is the...
In other words, how do you get out of the offensive stage, is the question. Serving the Vaishnavas. Because the worst offense, of course, is offending those who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord, offending Vaishnavas. So by serving Vaishnavas, as Lord Rishabhadev says, Mahatseva Mahora Vimuktes, that's the secret. Then you get the Bhakti Shakti. Because the only way to get rid of offenses is by positively having devotion. You can't I often say to people, you can't do a don't. You can't do a negative. It's impossible. And the more you try to get rid of something, the more you think of that same thing. So instead, your mind should be thinking of something positive. And the most positive thing that we have, the way you want to get the most mercy, according to Krishna Bhagavad Gita, is Krishna says, never will there be one more dear to me than those who teach Krishna consciousness or help people or expose people to the holy name. That's been my experience. It's like, I remember when I was a young devotee, I would go out and distribute Prabhupada's books actually for 10 hours a day. It was pretty intense. That was a nice time. But after a full day of helping people become Krishna conscious, and I'm not saying everybody should distribute books, but in some way or other, helping people, even if it's just your family members, being compassionate, then I would experience so much clarity of mind. I think everyone's experienced it. Sometimes you get these moments of clarity where Krishna just appears to you. I'm not saying that, you see Krishna, with his flute or anything like that, but it's just like everything becomes clear. It's like when you clean your glasses or something like that. Then to be compassionate towards others. And of course, compassion begins with your family members and the other devotees here. Serving the devotees. And then that'll help us overcome the offensive stage in chanting. Usually when I give an initiation, I talk about the 10 offenses in a positive way. I say, instead of saying, we should avoid, that's a negative, committing offenses against those who have dedicated their lives to propagating the holy name of the Lord, I say we should serve those. So you take it as a positive. Instead of disobeying the order of the spiritual master, you listen to the So I always try to explain the 10 offenses in a positive way, as well as a negative way. Okay?
Thank you, Maharaj. One more connected question.
Yeah.
So is there any explanation that why this blaspheming the devotees is the first of the offenses, which is not to do with the holy name, but the rest of the offenses?
Why is it considered the most serious offense?
And it's mentioned as the first of the 10
First offense because it's the mad elephant offense. And that way your bhakti lata bija becomes, the seed or creeper of devotion becomes trampled. It's stated by the acharyas, by committing offenses against Vaishnava, depending upon one's severity of the offenses. You know, there's offenses in one's mind, one's body, one's words. Then one's taste for Krishna consciousness becomes second class, third class, 10th class, or non-existent. And then it becomes very difficult to pick up the beads. Then your beads, your japa beads, feel like bowling balls. You go, oh, Hare Krishna. But if you are compassionate towards others, and that's what our temple is for. I mean, we can be Krishna conscious here in a home setting. I mean, you have so many deities on the altar already. It's like, wow, really a lot of deities here. So we can be compassionate. We can be Krishna conscious anywhere. I mean, I could be personally Krishna conscious anywhere. I don't need to open up temples. What do I get from opening up temples? Just more headaches. More people calling me, hey, Mara, you got to open up a temple. You got to help us open a temple. You got to help us raise funds. All right. It is more headaches. But it gives more people the opportunity to come to Krishna consciousness. That should be our vision. Why we building a temple? Not for our false prestige. I built a temple. So that more people in the Charlotte area can actually be exposed to Prabhupada's movement. And if we fight with each other, even if we have the temple, we're not doing any good to people. If we don't have the right attitude, what's the use of a building? Krishna doesn't stay there. I'll tell you a Prabhupada story. One time I was with Prabhupada in his room. There were a group of devotees who would just travel around to different temples. And they said to Prabhupada, we just visited this temple and they didn't treat us very well. But still we took darshan of the deity. And Prabhupada said, there's no deity in that temple. And the devotee said, but Prabhupada, I was right there hearing the story. The devotee said, but Prabhupada, we saw the deity. We offered a respect to the deity. Prabhupada said, you heard what I said. There's no deity. To me, that meant Krishna left because they mistreated the Vaishnavas. So if we treat each other nicely with compassion and forgiveness, like we're talking about chanting the holy names, you get forgiven. So we forgive. You know, people can make mistakes. I make mistakes. You all make mistakes. So what? You know, you can make mistakes, lose your temper, whatever. But, you know, we forgive them. We love the Vaishnavas. And then success will be there. And success in your personal chanting will be there too. I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to hit the road. I got another program tonight. I got to get to Monroe. So, any other quick questions?
We have, I think, 1 or 2 years for like the temple, soft opening of the temples.
Yeah.
Till then, as a congregation, what should be our goal? What should we do?
Have regular, increase the congregation. I would say have more home programs, invite more people, people you know, cultivate. In the beginning, it's good. My experience is good to cultivate people on a one-to-one basis. Sometimes to bring people to a program, just in the beginning, it may not be, it's good, but it may not be the best strategy. The best strategy. I mean, for example, in Australia, actually I'm doing this also where we are in North Carolina, I have the program of just visiting people on a Saturday or a Sunday for, maybe 8 different homes every day. And just getting to know people on an individual basis. No programs, just sitting down with the family, asking people if they have any questions about Krishna consciousness, getting to know people, personal relationships. So I think to develop personal relationships with each other and with others and bring people to Krishna consciousness. You got to grow the congregation here. Actually, to have a temple, you don't have enough people right now. So more devotees, happier devotees. And then the temple will grow, will be built. If you think first the temple, then more devotees, that's how doesn't work. Then somebody's going to take some financial burden on their head and be in complete anxiety because of some loan and getting ulcers or some other problem like that. So grow the devotees. And you don't need a temple to grow the devotees. People grow because of the exchanges of giving prasadam, accepting prasadam, giving gifts, accepting gifts, making friendships. Simple thing like that. And that's how we grew Nukaloka. Yeah, we have one very, very nice devotee, Narayan Prabhu, who I think you all know, who was really amazing. I mean, it's not that I did anything. It's these devotees, like Narayan and his wife, who organize all the bhakti vriksas around the year, everywhere from Winston-Salem all the way to, almost to the east coast of North Carolina. And they grew the congregation. And we had so many volunteers on Janmashtami. It was amazing. I mean, I was amazed how many people, not just people coming, but how many people were there volunteering gladly. I mean, in the first year or two, I was doing everything myself. I was cooking. It was too much. But I was young then. I can't do that now. Okay, I think I have to go, so thank you very much.
Wish me to come every quarter.
Every quarter. We'll see. In Australia, I did all these home visits, and now we have a congregation. We're building another temple in Sydney right now, in Western Sydney. And basically by visiting people in the homes and making friends with people, I think we might have helped facilitate, make 100 devotees within the last 4 years. And that's just in Sydney, Australia. So it's a personal touch. That's the main thing. Okay, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, I guess we'll have a prasadam now? Or?
No, we are having Aarti.
Aarti.
Gaurati.
Oh, Gaurati. Sorry, I'm getting upset. Okay, Haribol. Hare Krishna.
On the world? That day we were searching, right?
My mom has it. I don't know where it is.
One contact came when we were searching, we didn't find it.
Singing. Okay. You can do this?